Hey everyone. Today, we're diving into this really fascinating theological framework that basically explains the entire story of the universe. We're talking everything from the nature of free will and love all the way to a final cosmic plan for redemption.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, the one this whole idea is built around. If love isn't a choice, is it even love at all? This framework argues that pretty much the whole story of creation hangs on the answer to that.
All right, so to really get this, we've got to start at the very beginning, right? Where the source material itself starts, with God's original plan for everything. This is the bedrock that everything else is built on.
So, the idea here is that it all begins with God's very nature, which is love. And because of that, his whole goal was to create other beings who could, share in that love. But here's the catch. For that love to be real, to be genuine, it couldn't be some pre-programmed robot thing. It had to be a choice, and that meant one thing: free will.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Check out how love is defined here. It's not about a fuzzy feeling or some emotion. Nope, it's an action. Or maybe more accurately, a non-action. Love in this framework is the choice you make not to hurt someone when you absolutely have the freedom and the power to do so. It's all rooted in that freedom.
And here's another key piece of the puzzle. The text says that we, creatures, we can't just cook up this love on our own. It's not something that just comes from inside us. It has to come from somewhere else first. We have to receive love from God before we can even begin to show it to others. It's kind of like a divine loop, You get it, then you can give it. So, if you give everyone the freedom to choose love, well, you see where this is going, right? You also have to give them the freedom not to. The freedom to choose the exact opposite. And this right here is where the story takes a huge, dramatic turn. What you're seeing here is basically a cosmic showdown of two completely opposite goals. On one side, you've got God, whose whole plan is about creating a universe based on freely chosen love and relationship. And on the other side, you have this powerful, angelic being called Hellel here, who's like, nope, he chooses his own power over love. He decides to set himself up against God's entire plan.
And this is such a key parallel in the text. You see, the choice wasn't just for the angels. It was the exact same choice given to the first human, Adam. Both had real, genuine freedom. And in this story, what happens? Both chose rebellion instead of love, disobedience instead of relationship. But for Adam, this choice had a really specific, terrible consequence. He became what the source calls a slave to sin.
Okay, but here's a massive plot twist. According to this framework, none of this, the rebellion, the fall, none of it was a surprise to God. It wasn't a plan B situation. The text argues that this failure was actually part of the original plan, because God intended to use this very act of rebellion to set the stage for the ultimate solution, the cross.
And that brings us right to the heart of the whole story, the cross. In this view, it's not just some event that happened a long time ago. It's God's ultimate, definitive answer to the whole problem of free will gone wrong. It's the ultimate proof of who he is.
So how does it work? Well, the text lays it out in these 4 steps. First, God himself actually enters the creation, becoming a human being, Jesus. Second, he lives that perfect life of love that Adam was supposed to, facing every temptation and winning. Third, he shows the ultimate act of love and obedience by dying on the cross. And finally, and this is the big one, that perfect act of love is so powerful, it literally conquers death itself.
And this verse from Romans really pulls it all together. Think about it. The cross is presented as the ultimate proof of God's love. Why? Because it wasn't a gift for people who deserved it. It was for a creation that had already turned its back on him. It's love in the face of total rejection. And that, according to the text, is what proves both God's justice and his incredible mercy.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But what does it mean for us, for humanity? Well, this is where the text brings in this really powerful idea of Jesus as the last Adam. His actions basically create a whole new blueprint, a new path for what it means to be human.
This chart just lays it out so clearly. You have the first Adam, whose one act of disobedience led to this whole legacy of sin and death, but then you have the last Adam, Jesus, whose one act of perfect obedience completely flips the script. He defeats sin and offers a totally new legacy, one of life and being born again. It's like one choice broke everything and another choice comes along to fix it all.
So by connecting to this last Adam, humanity isn't stuck in that old pattern anymore. We're not just doomed to repeat the same mistakes. The source says we're given a new kind of power, the Holy Spirit, that helps us overcome our broken nature. It empowers us to actually love, to love God and other people, and to follow this new example of perfect obedience, even if it costs us everything.
All right, let's zoom out and look at the final chapter of this whole epic story. How does it all end? What's the end game for a universe that started with something as risky as free will?
What this timeline shows is that the cross isn't the end of the story. It's the thing that kicks off this massive cosmic chain reaction. It shows God's true nature to everyone, even the angels, and when they see that love, it inspires a real, genuine love in return. And this is so important. It doesn't get rid of free will, it perfects it. Now beings can freely and happily choose God's way. And the final result? Sin is just gone, wiped from creation for good.
And that, right there, brings the entire story full circle. Remember the original plan? To create beings in God's image? Beings who could love freely? Well, after this whole journey, through rebellion, through redemption, that plan is finally completely realized. Free will has been tested, and it comes out the other side perfected, creating beings who truly reflect the loving nature of the God who made them.
And that leaves us with one last really deep question to chew on. In a perfected world, where everyone freely chooses what is good, what is loving, where the idea of hurting someone else just isn't on the table anymore, what does free will even mean then? Is real freedom the ability to pick between good and evil? Or is it something else entirely? The freedom to finally, fully embrace the only choice that leads to life?